The crash of shattered glass echoed across the silent dining hall. Every head turned. Conversations froze. Even the soft violin music in the background seemed to fade away. And in the center of it all stood Daniel, trembling, pale, and staring at the disaster he had just created. The most powerful CEO in the city was slowly rising from his chair, his $3,000 suit soaked in red wine. Daniel had only been working at the Golden Crown restaurant for 3 months. It was the most luxurious place in the city, the kind of restaurant where politicians, celebrities, and billionaires dined under crystal chandeliers. He needed this job desperately. His mother was sick. Hospital bills were piling up, and every tip he earned went straight toward her treatment. That night, the manager had pulled him aside. "Be careful," he whispered. "Table 7 is very important. That's Mr. Harrison Blake, CEO of Blake Industries." Daniel had heard the name before. Blake Industries owned half the skyscrapers downtown. People said Mr. Blake was ruthless in business and had zero tolerance for mistakes. And tonight, Daniel was assigned to serve him. Table 7 looked intimidating. Mr. Blake sat at the center, surrounded by executives. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his posture sharp and commanding. His eyes scanned the room like he owned it. Daniel's palms were sweating as he approached with a tray of wine glasses. "Careful," he whispered to himself. But fate had other plans. A small child from another table ran past him unexpectedly. Daniel turned slightly to avoid stepping on him. His shoe slipped on the polished floor, and in one horrifying second, the tray tilted, the glasses shattered, and deep red wine poured directly onto Mr. Blake's chest. Gasps filled the room. Daniel felt his heart stop. I'm so sorry, sir," he stammered, grabbing napkins. "Please forgive me. It was an accident." The manager rushed over, his face white with panic. "Daniel, what have you done?" Everyone expected shouting, firing, humiliation. Mr. Blake slowly stood up. He looked down at his stained suit, then at Daniel. The silence was unbearable. Daniel braced himself. This was it. He would lose his job. Maybe worse. But instead of yelling, the CEO asked a simple question. "Are you hurt?" Daniel blinked. "Yes, sir." "Did you fall? You almost slipped." Daniel shook his head. "No, sir. I'm fine." Mr. Blake nodded once. "Good." Then he turned to the manager. "Accident happened. Bring me another jacket from my car." The entire table stared in shock. Daniel couldn't believe it. He had just ruined the dinner of the most powerful man in the city, and he wasn't fired. But the night wasn't over yet. After cleaning up the mess, Daniel was sure he would be sent home. Instead, the manager whispered harshly, "You're lucky he's in a good mood. Finish your shift carefully." Daniel worked the rest of the evening like he was walking on glass. 2 hours later, the executives had left. Only Mr. Blake remained, sitting alone with a cup of black coffee. Daniel hesitated, but gathered courage. "Sir, I truly apologize again." Mr. Blake looked up at him. "What's your name?" "Daniel, sir." "How long have you worked here, Daniel?" 3 months. "You seem nervous." Daniel forced a smile. "It's my first time serving someone so important." Mr. Blake studied him carefully. "You needed this job tonight." It wasn't a question. Daniel's throat tightened. "Yes, sir." There was something about the CEO's voice, not harsh, but observant, like he was used to reading people. "Why?" Mr. Blake asked. Daniel hesitated, but something in his heart pushed him to speak honestly. "My mother is sick. I'm paying for her treatment. If I lose this job," his voice trailed off. For a moment, Mr. Blake didn't respond. Then he said quietly, "My mother passed away when I was 22. I couldn't afford the surgery she needed." Daniel froze. "I built my company because of that," Mr. Blake continued. "I promised myself I would never be powerless again. The powerful CEO, the man people called cold and ruthless, suddenly seemed human. You remind me of myself," Mr. Blake said. Daniel didn't know what to say. "Tell me," the CEO continued, "what do you really want to do with your life?" "Serve tables forever." Daniel shook his head immediately. "No, sir. I want to study business. Maybe start something of my own one day." Mr. Blake's eyes sharpened. "Interesting." He pulled a card from his pocket and placed it on the table. Come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. Daniel's heart skipped. Yes, sir. If you're late, don't bother coming. With that, Mr. Blake stood up and walked out of the restaurant. Daniel stared at the business card in his shaking hands. Blake Industries. Executive office. Was this a joke? Daniel barely slept that night. At 8:30 a.m., he stood outside the towering headquarters of Blake Industries. The glass building reflected the morning sun like a symbol of power. He felt small standing in front of it. Inside, everything looked polished and intimidating. Receptionists in perfect suits. Employees walking quickly with purpose. Name? The receptionist asked. Daniel. Mr. Blake asked me to come. She checked her computer and nodded. He's expecting you. Daniel's heart pounded. He entered a massive office overlooking the city skyline. Mr. Blake stood near the window. You're 5 minutes early, the CEO said without turning around. Good. Daniel swallowed. Thank you for seeing me, sir. Mr. Blake faced him. I don't give second chances because someone spills wine, he said calmly. I give chances based on character. Daniel listened carefully. You didn't blame the child who ran past you. You didn't argue. You apologized immediately. You were worried about your job, not your pride. He walked closer. That tells me something. Daniel felt hope rising in his chest. Mr. Blake continued. I'm starting a mentorship program inside my company. It's for young people who have potential but lack opportunity. Daniel's eyes widened. I want to test you, Mr. Blake said. You'll work here part-time as an assistant while continuing your job at the restaurant for now. You'll study, learn, and prove yourself. Daniel almost couldn't breathe. Why me? He whispered. Mr. Blake gave a faint smile. Because the way a person reacts to a mistake shows more than years of perfection. Daniel accepted immediately. But the real challenge was just beginning. The corporate world was nothing like the restaurant. Other assistants looked at him with judgment. He didn't have a fancy degree. He didn't wear expensive suits. One co-worker even whispered, he's just a waiter. Daniel heard it. But instead of quitting, he worked harder. He stayed late, asked questions, took notes, learned about finance management negotiation. Mr. Blake watched silently. Months passed. One day, during an important internal meeting, a presentation file crashed minutes before a major investor call. Panic filled the room. Who prepared this? A manager demanded. Daniel stepped forward. I can fix it. He had stayed late the previous week, studying the company's data. He knew the numbers. Within minutes, he rebuilt the presentation from memory and helped secure the deal. After the meeting, Mr. Blake called him into his office. You saved us millions today, the CEO said. Daniel smiled nervously. I just did what I could. Mr. Blake leaned back in his chair. Do you know why you're here, Daniel? Because I spilled wine? Daniel joked softly. Mr. Blake actually laughed. No, because that night, when you thought everything was over, you stayed respectful. He paused. Success isn't about never falling. It's about how you stand back up. Or had ruining a dinner just changed his life. A year later, Daniel no longer worked at the restaurant. He had earned a full scholarship sponsored by Blake Industries. He was officially part of the company's junior executive team. But one evening, Mr. Blake invited him back to the Golden Crown. Why here? Daniel asked, smiling. Mr. Blake adjusted his tie. Because this is where I found my best investment. They sat at table 7. The same table. The same chandeliers. This time, Daniel wore a sharp suit. A young waiter approached nervously, carrying drinks. Daniel could see the fear in the boy's eyes, the same fear he once felt. And then, the waiter's hand trembled. A glass tipped. Water spilled across the table. The boy froze. I'm so sorry, sir. Daniel and Mr. Blake looked at each other. For a moment, Daniel saw his past self standing there. He stood up gently. It's okay, Daniel said warmly. Are you hurt? The boy blinked in confusion. No, sir. Good. Daniel smiled. Accidents happen. Mr. Blake watched proudly. After the waiter left, Mr. Blake said quietly, You learned? Daniel nodded. No, sir, he replied. You taught me? Mr. Blake shook his head. I only opened the door. You walked through it. As they finished dinner, Daniel realized something powerful. That night, the worst night of his life, wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If he hadn't slipped, if he hadn't spilled that wine, if he hadn't faced that terrifying silence, he might still be hiding from his potential. Sometimes the moment you think will destroy you is the moment that builds you. And somewhere in that same restaurant, another young waiter might be one mistake away from a second chance. So if you ever ruin something, if you ever embarrass yourself, if you ever think it's over, remember Daniel. Because one accident doesn't define your future, but your reaction to it just might. And that's the real lesson behind the night a waiter ruined the CEO's dinner and found his destiny instead.